As an introduction to our unit on ancient Greece, we will begin with its earliest inhabitants, the Minoans. Minoan civilization rose around 2800 BCE on the island of Crete in the Mediterranean Sea. The Minoans, who were sometimes called Cretans, grew wheat, barley, grapes, and olives. When the olive groves and vineyards produced more than was needed, the Minoans traded the surplus of goods for goods they could not grow or make on Crete. Since there were many forests on Crete, the Minoans learned to work with wood and become good carpenters. They also learned to work with metal. They used their metalworking and carpentry skills to build ships and began to earn a living from trade instead of farming. When pirates threatened them, the Minoans changed the way they built their ships so that they could go faster. They made them slimmer with 2 or 3 masts instead of 1. The Minoans also put a deck over the heads of the rowers to protect them. They placed a wooden beam in the prow or front of the ship. This was used to smash a hole in the enemy's ships to sink them. Over time, the Minoans drove off the pirates. By about 2000 BCE, Crete was the world's first seafaring civilization. Minoan merchant ships traveled far to trade pottery, leather, bronze armor, and jewelry. The Minoans were a small people with bronze skin and long dark hair. Men wore striped loincloths, long robes embroidered with flowers, or trousers that bagged at the knees. Women wore full skirts and short-sleeved jackets that laced in the front. The Minoans had small waists and wore tight belts to show them off. Both men and women wore jewelry such as gold and silver earrings, necklaces, bracelets, and rings. The Minoans spent the time in a variety of ways. The men farmed and fished. They raised cattle, longhorn sheep, and goats. They also served in the Navy and Royal Guard. Women performed household duties, attended sporting events, and went hunting in chariots. The people of Crete loved sports. They built what was probably the world's first arena. It stood in the open air. Stone steps formed grandstands where about 500 people could sit and watch the action. The king and royal party had their own special box seats. Boxing matches were held in the arena. Bull leaping, a form of bullfighting, was also held there. A young man and woman may have fought together. The man would grab the bull's horns. As the bull raised its head to toss him, the man would do a somersault, landing on his feet on the bull's back. He would then do a backflip standing behind the bull. The women would catch her partner as landed. Many experts believe bull leaping was a religious ceremony as well as a sport. The Minoans built many cities, which were different from those of other ancient civilizations in 2 ways. At the center of each city stood a palace rather than a temple. Also, Minoan cities did not have walls around them. Instead, people depended on the sea and the navy for protection. One of the largest cities of Crete was Knossos. It covered about 28 acres. About 1/5 of the area was taken up by a 5-story palace that served as a government building, temple, factory, and warehouse. Its walls were made of stone and sun-dried brick, framed with wooden beams. The Minoans decorated the inside of the walls with brightly colored frescoes or watercolor paintings made on damp plaster. The palace had bathrooms with bathtubs and flushing toilets. It also had hot and cold running water and portable fireboxes to hold rooms. Most of what we know of the Minoans comes from the frescoes, although there is evidence they kept some records. The written language of the Minoans is called Linear A by archaeologists, linguists, and historians, and has not yet been deciphered. In 1900, The archaeologist Sir Arthur Evans discovered a large number of clay tablets inscribed with mysterious symbols at Knossos on Crete. Houses of the common people were built side by side around courtyards. Most were 2 stories high. Lower walls were made of stone and the upper walls were made of sun-dried brick. The inside walls were painted with scenes from daily life. Each house also had its own well and drains. Many houses had no entrance from the street. A person went in or out through the roof and lowered a ladder over the side of the house. Later, doors and windows covered with oiled and tinted parchment or thin animal skin were added. The Minoans had many gods. The main god was the great goddess Mother Earth. She made plants grow and brought children into the world. To honor her, the Minoans built shrines or sacred places to worship in palaces, on hilltops, and in caves. The people believed the hilltops led to heaven, and the caves led to the underworld. Sacred horns made of clay and covered with stucco rested against the back wall of each shrine. A hole between the horns held a bronze double axe. Around the horns were clay models of animals. People left offerings of human hair, fruit, flowers, jewels, and gold at the shrines. No one is certain why Minoan civilization came to an end. Professor Spiridon Myrinatos was the first to suggest that the eruption of Thera, along with the associated effects, was the cause for the catastrophe. The theory argues that earthquakes destroyed the palaces, tsunamis obliterated the fleet and piers of the Minoans, and the volcanic ash of Thera covered the whole island, destroying crops and suffocating animals. Regardless, the invasion and occupation of Crete by the Mycenaeans is certain. Legend explains this with the story of Theseus and the Minotaur. A young Greek prince named Theseus was brought to Knossos. He was to be sacrificed to the Minotaur, a huge monster the king kept in the palace labyrinth. The Minotaur had the body of a man and the head of a bull, and lived on human flesh. He fought the monster and killed it. When the monster died, so did the power of Crete.